Welcome to my YouTube channel. Please take this comprehensive 25-question practice quiz designed specifically for Microsoft Azure Solutions Architect Expert. Question 51 of 75. Your company uses Azure AD Connect with password hash sync. A user changes their on-premises password. What is the maximum time before the new password is synchronized to Azure AD? Options: immediate, real-time, 2 minutes, 30 minutes, 24 hours. Correct option is 2 minutes. Azure AD Connect synchronizes password hashes every 2 minutes by default. This is different from the standard synchronization cycle, 30 minutes, which syncs other attributes. Password hash sync uses a separate, more frequent schedule to minimize authentication delays. Pass-through authentication provides immediate validation, while password hash sync has this slight delay. For zero delay, consider Azure ADDS or federated authentication with ADFS. Question 52 of 75. You need to design a solution where VMs in different VNets can communicate privately without VNet peering. Which feature should you use? Options: Azure Firewall, Virtual WAN, Application Gateway, ExpressRoute FastPath. Correct option is Virtual WAN. Azure Virtual WAN provides a hub-and-spoke network topology allowing transitive connectivity between VNets without requiring mesh peering. It simplifies large-scale networking with built-in routing, VPN, and ExpressRoute integration. Virtual WAN supports branch connectivity, inter-hub communication, and Azure Firewall integration. For simple scenarios, use VNet peering. For complex multi-region, multi-branch scenarios, Virtual WAN is the optimal solution, providing centralized management and routing. Question 53 of 75. What is the maximum number of Azure policy assignments that can be applied at the subscription scope? Options: 100, 200, 500, 1000. Correct option is 200. Azure allows up to 200 policy assignments per subscription scope. This includes assignments of both individual policy definitions and policy initiatives, sets. Policy assignments can be made at management group, subscription, resource group, or resource scopes. Assignments at higher scopes are inherited by lower scopes. Use policy initiatives to group related policies and reduce assignment count. For large enterprises, structure policies at management group level for efficiency. Question 54 of 75. You need to implement certificate-based authentication for Azure App Service. Which app service plan tier is required at minimum? Options: free or shared, basic, standard, premium, or isolated. Correct option is basic. Client certificate authentication, mutual TLS, requires basic tier or higher. Free and shared tiers don't support custom SSL, TLS, or client certificates. Basic tier enables custom domains in SSL. Standard adds auto-scaling and staging slots. Premium adds VNet integration. Isolated provides dedicated environment. Client certificate auth enhances security by requiring clients to present valid certificates, implementing mutual authentication for API security and B2B scenarios. Question 55 of 75. In Azure Kubernetes Service, what is the purpose of the system node pool? Options: running user workloads only, running critical system pods like core DNS and metrics server, providing external load balancing, managing ingress controllers. Correct option is running critical system pods like core DNS and metrics server. System node pools run critical system pods required for cluster operation, including core DNS, metrics server, tunnelfront, and other Kubernetes system components. AKS requires at least one system node pool with at least one node. User node pools run application workloads. Best practice: separate system and user workloads using taints, tolerations, and node selectors. System pools should use reliable VM sizes, standard _DS2_v2 minimum, and avoid spot instances for stability. Question 56 of 75. You configure Azure ADB2C with custom policies. What is the maximum size for a custom policy XML file? Options: 64 kilobytes, 128 kilobytes, 256 kilobytes, 512 kilobytes. Correct option is 64 kilobytes. Azure ADB2C custom policy XML files have a maximum size of 64 kilobytes. This limit includes all XML content, comments, and whitespace. For complex scenarios requiring larger policies, split logic across multiple policy files using inheritance and base policies. Use policy fragments, claims providers, and technical profiles efficiently. Minify XML by removing unnecessary whitespace and comments. Custom policies enable advanced scenarios beyond user flows, including custom UI, API integrations, and complex authentication flows. Question 57 of 75. What is the minimum recovery point objective, RPO, achievable with Azure SQL Database Geo-replication? Options: 0 seconds, synchronous, 5 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 minutes. Correct option is 5 seconds. Active geo-replication for Azure SQL Database provides RPO of approximately 5 seconds with asynchronous replication. Geo-replication supports up to 4 readable secondary replicas in any Azure region. For business-critical tier, you can achieve near zero RPO using synchronous commit within the same region via zone redundant configuration. Failover groups automate failover process. RPO represents potential data loss. RTO, recovery time objective, is typically under 30 seconds for failover. Question 58 of 75. You need to route traffic to the closest Azure region based on DNS queries. Which traffic manager routing method should you use? Options: performance, geographic, priority, weighted. Correct option is performance. Performance routing directs traffic to the endpoint with the lowest network latency from the user's location. Traffic Manager measures latency to each endpoint and routes to the fastest. This differs from geographic routing, routes based on geographic location of DNS query, priority, failover, and weighted, distributes traffic by percentage. Performance routing is ideal for globally distributed applications requiring optimal user experience. Combine with health checks for automatic failover when endpoints become unhealthy. Question 59 of 75. What is the maximum number of custom roles you can create in an Azure AD tenant? Options: 100, 500, 2000, 5000. Correct option is 5000. Azure AD allows up to 5000 custom role definitions per tenant. Azure AD Premium P1 or P2 required. Custom roles supplement 300 plus built-in roles when specific permission combinations are needed. Custom roles can be assigned at directory, application, or administrative unit scope. Use built-in roles when possible. Create custom roles only for specific governance requirements. Document custom roles thoroughly and review regularly to prevent permission sprawl and maintain security. Question 60 of 75. You implement Azure Firewall Premium. Which feature is exclusive to Premium tier and not available in standard? Options: application rules, TLS inspection, DNAT, destination NAT, threat intelligence filtering. Correct option is TLS inspection. TLS inspection, SSLD packet inspection, is exclusive to Azure Firewall Premium. Premium also adds IDPS, intrusion detection and prevention system, URL filtering, and web categories. Standard tier includes application rules, network rules, NAT rules, and threat intelligence. TLS inspection decrypts traffic, inspects for threats, then re-encrypts, enabling detection of threats in encrypted traffic. Premium is essential for advanced security requirements, compliance, and zero-trust architectures requiring comprehensive traffic inspection. Question 61 of 75. In Azure Storage, what is the maximum throughput for a single blob when using Premium blob storage? Options: 100 megabytes per second, 500 megabytes per second, multiple gigabyte per second, 20 gigabytes per second. Correct option is multiple gigabyte per second. Premium blob storage provides multiple gigabyte per second throughput per blob with low latency access. Exact throughput depends on blob size and concurrency. Premium uses SSDs versus HDDs in standard, and offers higher IOPS, lower latency, and consistent performance. Ideal for scenarios requiring high transaction rates like IoT data streaming, real-time analytics, and high-frequency trading. Standard blob storage has lower throughput limits. Premium page blobs support up to 900 megabytes per second for single blobs. Question 62 of 75. You need to implement Azure AD conditional access that blocks access from unfamiliar locations. Which signal should you primarily use? Options: sign-in risk, user risk, location, named locations, device state. Correct option is location, named locations. Named locations in conditional access enable defining trusted IP ranges or countries, regions. Policies can block access from locations not in the trusted list. This differs from sign-in risk, detects anomalous behavior, user risk, compromised credentials, and device state, compliant, managed status. Combine named locations with other signals for defense in depth. Configure trusted locations for Office IPs, VPN endpoints, and known remote locations. Use location as one factor in Zero Trust security strategy. Question 63 of 75. What is the maximum retention period for soft deleted blobs in Azure Storage? Options: 7 days, 30 days, 90 days, 365 days. Correct option is 365 days. Soft delete for blobs supports retention up to 365 days. During this period, deleted blobs can be restored. Soft delete protects against accidental deletion and provides a safety net for data recovery. Applies to blobs, snapshots, and versions. Configure retention period based on compliance requirements and change frequency. Soft delete incurs storage costs for retained data. Combine with versioning for comprehensive data protection. Essential for production environments and regulated industries. Question 64 of 75. You configure Azure Front Door with a web application firewall. What is the maximum number of custom rules you can create per WAF policy? Options: 50, 100, 200, 500. Correct option is 100. Azure WAF on Front Door supports up to 100 custom rules per policy. Custom rules enable specific security logic beyond managed rule sets. Each rule can have up to 10 match conditions. WAF policies can be associated with multiple Front Door endpoints. Use managed rule sets, OWASP, Microsoft, for common protections and custom rules for application-specific security requirements. Consider rule complexity and processing order. Regularly review and optimize rules for performance and security effectiveness. Question 65 of 75. In Azure DevOps, you create a release pipeline with manual approval. What is the maximum approval timeout before the deployment is automatically rejected? Options: 7 days, 30 days, 60 days, no automatic timeout. Correct option is 30 days. Manual approvals in Azure DevOps have a default timeout of 30 days, after which pending approvals are automatically rejected. This timeout is configurable. Approvals enable gates and controls in deployment pipelines, ensuring proper authorization before production deployments. Configure multiple approvers, require minimum approver count, and set up reassignment. Use approvals with pre-deployment and post-deployment gates. Integrate with ServiceNow, Teams, or email for notification. Essential for compliance and change management. Question 66 of 75. You need to implement Azure Databricks with the highest network isolation. Which deployment option should you use? Options: standard deployment, VNet injection, secure cluster connectivity, no public IP, private endpoints. Correct option is VNet injection, secure cluster connectivity, no public IP, NPIP. Provides the highest network isolation for Databricks by eliminating public IPs from cluster nodes. Combines with VNet injection, deploying Databricks in customer VNet. Traffic stays within Microsoft backbone. No public IP exposure reduces attack surface. Requires Azure Databricks Premium. Also configure private endpoints for workspace connectivity. Enables compliance with strict security requirements, financial services regulations, and zero trust architectures requiring no internet exposure. Question 67 of 75. What is the maximum number of Azure subscriptions that can be associated with a single Azure AD tenant? Options: 50, 100, unlimited, 1000. Correct option is unlimited. There is no limit on the number of subscriptions that can be associated with a single Azure AD tenant. However, there are limits on resources per subscription. Use multiple subscriptions for billing separation, resource limit avoidance, environment isolation, dev, test, prod, department segregation, and compliance boundaries. Organize subscriptions using management groups, up to 10,000 subscriptions per tenant. Consider subscription design carefully as part of cloud adoption framework and landing zone strategy. Question 68 of 75. You configure an Azure Logic app with an HTTP trigger that has a relative path. What is the maximum number of path parameters you can define? Options: 3, 5, 10, 25. Correct option is 10. Azure Logic Apps HTTP triggers support up to 10 path parameters in relative paths. Path parameters enable RESTful API designs like orders, order ID, items, item ID. Parameters are extracted and available in trigger outputs. HTTP trigger supports various authentication methods: Azure AD OAuth, API key, certificate, or anonymous. Logic apps can expose complex workflows as APIs. Combine with API management for comprehensive API strategy including throttling, caching, and security policies. Question 69 of 75. In Azure API management, what is the maximum request size that can be processed by the consumption tier? Options: 1 MB, 4 MB, 10 MB, 50 MB. Correct option is 1 MB. API management consumption tier has a 1 MB request size limit. Developer, Basic, Standard, and Premium tiers support larger payloads. Consumption tier offers serverless pricing, automatic scaling, and no infrastructure management but with certain limitations. For large payloads, file uploads, binary data, use Premium or Standard tiers, or implement chunked uploads. Consider request size requirements when selecting tier. Consumption tier is ideal for lightweight APIs, dev, test, and variable workloads. Question 70 of 75. You implement Azure Sentinel with a log analytics workspace. What is the maximum query timeout for custom queries? Options: 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. Correct option is 10 minutes. Azure Sentinel, Microsoft Sentinel. Queries in log analytics have a 10-minute timeout. Complex queries over large datasets should be optimized using query performance best practices. Filter early, use summarize efficiently, avoid unnecessary joins, and leverage materialized views. For long-running analytics, use scheduled queries or data connectors with pre-processing. Sentinel provides built-in workbooks, hunting queries, and analytics rules for threat detection across hybrid environments using KQL, Custo query language. Question 71 of 75. What is the minimum EDTU, Elastic Database Transaction Unit, allocation for an Azure SQL Database Elastic Pool in the standard tier? Options: 10 EDTUs, 50 EDTUs, 100 EDTUs, 200 EDTUs. Correct option is 50 EDTUs. Standard tier Elastic pools start at 50 EDTUs minimum. Elastic pools enable sharing resources, EDTUs or vCores, among multiple databases, optimizing costs for databases with varying usage patterns. Pools support min, max EDTU per database settings, ensuring resource guarantees while allowing sharing. Basic tier starts at 50 EDTUs, Standard at 50-3000 EDTUs, Premium at 125-4000 EDTUs. Choose pool size based on aggregate database needs and peak usage patterns. Monitor metrics to optimize allocation. Question 72 of 75. You need to implement cross-region disaster recovery for Azure Kubernetes service with automated failover. Which solution provides this capability? Options: Azure Traffic Manager with Health Probes, AKS multi-region deployment with Azure Front Door, Azure Site Recovery for AKS, availability zones within a single region. Correct option is AKS multi-region deployment with Azure Front Door. AKS multi-region deployment with Azure Front Door enables cross-region disaster recovery with automated failover. Deploy AKS clusters in multiple regions, use Front Door for global load balancing with health probes, and implement stateful workload replication using Azure Storage or Cosmos DB. Site recovery doesn't support AKS. Availability zones protect against data center failures within a region, not region-level disasters. Include GitOps for configuration sync, Azure Container Registry geo-replication, and multi-region persistent storage strategy. Question 73 of 75. In Azure Event Grid, what is the maximum event size that can be published to a custom topic? Options: 64 kilobytes, 256 kilobytes, 1 megabyte, 10 megabytes. Correct option is 1 megabyte. Azure Event Grid supports maximum event size of 1 megabyte, 1024 kilobytes, per event. Events are billed in 64 kilobytes increments, so a 1 megabyte event consumes 16 operation units. For larger payloads, use Event Grid with reference to data stored in blob storage, claim check pattern. Event Grid provides serverless event routing with advanced filtering, retry policies, dead lettering, and integration with 20+ Azure services and custom webhooks. Ideal for event-driven architectures and reactive systems. Question 74 of 75. You configure Azure AD Application Proxy for on-premises web applications. What is the maximum number of application proxy connectors recommended per connector group? Options: 5, 10, 20, 40. Correct option is 10. Microsoft recommends maximum 10 connectors per connector group for optimal performance and load distribution. Application Proxy provides secure remote access to on-premises web apps without VPN. Connectors are lightweight agents installed on Windows servers that create outbound connections to Azure, eliminating inbound firewall rules. Use multiple connector groups for isolation, production versus test, and geography-based routing. Each connector handles 1,000 to 1,500 concurrent connections. For high availability, deploy at least 2 connectors per group. Question 75 of 75. What is the default message retention period for Azure Service Bus Standard Tier queues? Options: 1 day, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days. Correct option is 14 days. Service Bus Standard Tier has default message retention of 14 days, configurable from 1 minute to 14 days. Premium Tier supports up to 90 days retention. Messages exceeding retention are automatically deleted. Use Service Bus for reliable messaging, FIFO guarantees, sessions, duplicate detection, and transaction support. For longer retention, process messages to permanent storage. Basic Tier has same 14-day maximum. Retention policies ensure queue size management and prevent unbounded storage growth.